All right, welcome in. Welcome back to the BFR Podcast presented by Sports Mockery. My name is Dave. I cover the Bears for SM, joined by my good friend, Chicago Bears content creator and co-host Ficky. And of course, we have our producer, Jack, on the sticks, going to be joining the show like always. And we have some sad news, depending on what camp you're on. I'll be honest, I think everyone's a little disheartened, or at least a little has some type of take in regards to Trey. Trey Smith?
Trey Smith. Mm-hmm.
From Kansas City. We're going to get to that here in a minute about him being franchise tagged and kind of what that means for the Bears and what they might do to pivot. Before we get in to any of that, like always, Ficky, Jack, how you doing?
Doing good. Combine started, right? We got to watch some actual like reps of
40 times.
Yeah, different things, especially with the D line. Obviously, as we know, the Bears, it's very important. So checking out some of these gigantic monsters and how they're moving with and also like vertical. Like I saw CJ West, who could be a possible landing a possible D line prospect for the Bears from IU. I watched a lot of them since that's my alumni. Man's 316 pounds and he ran a 4.9540. So like every time I love watching the combine because I look at these guys and I'm like, how? Like this is every year I'm shocked. How does someone that big move that quick? But definitely today we had my eyes on there because we could be seeing someone with the first pick. If not the first pick, definitely something in that second round going with someone with the D line. So I'm doing well. I love the combine. But how about you, Jack?
Yeah, doing good. It's first day of football. We got football already back. It's crazy. It feels like the Super Bowl was yesterday, and now we're already back to some sort of football. Boring football, but it is football. I mean, obviously it's exciting. Definitely learning, though, that it's a lot of things, or there are a lot of things that I don't know. Like some of these people, I don't know who they are. I've never heard of them in my life, and they just like show up, and everyone I see tweets from like Ari Schefter, whoever, being like, "Hey, like this guy ran 4.5. Who the hell? I don't know who that is." You know,
that's
so
the best.
Learning.
That's the best part, though. I think though, is because like you'll see some of these names that you were like, "Who?" Right, and then the fun part is like not only seeing them like kind of rise the board, but then like 2 years down the line, if they actually turned out well, you're like, oh wow, like these were the signs right here. People really didn't know about him, and he kind of rise the ranks in the combine. But you also have the opposite, which I'm always afraid of, is where everyone gets sold on the measurements and the potential, but the man didn't have the production for multiple years in college, and you're like, oh, that's the guy. Right. And then you pick them and it doesn't turn out. So I just love, because really this is like just gambling, right? This is the scratch offs here. And it's like, can you get the right scratch off based off all this data that's being presented? And it's also, you brings that competition back. So we love to see these guys go at it. So, but Dave, how you doing? Muted. We got him. It's been a minute, man. Yeah. Oh, it might be a technical difficulty on his end. There you go. Yeah, he's gonna fix it. Okay, so Dave's not doing great, right? Obviously, we can tell. No, but I will say this, man. Like, combine is fun. I do like watching the combine, but the draft is something else.
I know. We got to get there. We really got to get there. And I can't believe we're still far. It kind of sucks that there's a month to that, and then some.
But I feel like this month. I feel like it was just a couple of weeks ago. You're like, we asked how you're doing. You're like, there's no football, so I hate it here, which is fair. But we kind of got through it, at least we got back to it. But you got a good point. Like, we got to wait, like, after the combine ends, which would be this week, we get a little bit of free agency, right? So you got like a kind of a week of rumors and whatnot. Then free agency hits. They'll kind of take you through a week, and then you got like a month, because that'll be like the end of March. That'll be like mid-March. And then the draft is literally the end of April. So even more.
My thing is, like, the problem with free agency, at least as a Bears fan recently, kind of besides last year, is like free agency is always much more of a letdown than you think it is. Like, you go into it thinking like, oh, we got this guy available, this guy. It's like, these are big signings that are going to happen. And then we end up with, I can't even think of an example, but like, moral of the story is like, especially with Trey out too, because that would have been exciting. Like day one, it opens, and then Trey, we're like, is it going to happen? What's going on? Obviously it's not. And we'll get into that later. But at the same time, like, just looking at the board, it's hard to think, one, what's realistic, and then two, what's probable. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit difficult, and I'm hoping it's going to be a little more exciting.
Were you not, though, excited about I feel like last free agency wasn't
that's
bad.
why I kind of said forget that, because obviously Keenan was exciting, that happened during that time.
Yeah, Swift was still exciting. It was still kind of exciting. Yeah. The year before that, if we'd have known how well Edwards was going to be, maybe that would have been more of a big of exciting. He was great, right? Trey Edmonds, I thought, brought a little bit of juice. That was nice. But if you look at the years prior to that, I agree with you spot on, Jack. It was who are the Bears going to get? We literally have no one good on our team. Yeah. Please, anybody would be an upgrade, and then we'd get nobodies that aren't even on the team now. So
it's definitely feel from a fantasy football perspective too. Is you look at this because again, we talked a little bit about it last week. Was Stephon Diggs is a free agent. So then say Stephon Diggs goes to the Eagles, that'll be weird to process, stuff like that. So that part's fun, but yeah.
Well, I think what's different now, and I actually saw who was reporting this. I think it was actually Adam Hogue and Adam Johns. They were saying at the combine that the vibe of the Bears is that, because obviously everyone's there at the combine, they get to talk to all different types of people from different organizations and different media outlets and whatnot. And people were saying, people were high now on the Bears. Not that this is a Super Bowl contending team, but this is not your Joe Schmo team, right? And there is potential. Why that's important is because of what you just said, Jack. Getting guys that want to come here, right? And players, unless they just get thrown the bag, which happens, you'll see that, right? A lot of times they want to go to teams that are more likely going to win. You don't want to go somewhere that is complete garbage unless they're throwing you $100 million, right? Because money does talk. So I feel like looking at 2 years ago, looking at this year, and then now, looking at 2 years ago, looking at last year's free agency, and then now looking at this year, I feel like we'll probably see even better of a free agency, or at least within the same realm of it. Now, it might be on the trenches, so it's not as exciting as names, but from a talent standpoint, plus with the money we have, I don't think we're walking away and going to be wow, what did we do? At least that's my take. I could be completely wrong, but I do feel positive about the approaches there. And look, there might be another Keenan Allen trade out there. We know Poles loves to do a random trade out of nowhere. So who knows? But Dave, what's your thoughts on free agency? Do you feel... Oh, you're still muted. Yeah. Still muted. Michael Berry, though, did have a good comment here. He said Dahlman is a must in this offseason. How about now? I feel like
we're kind of getting to that must territory. We're kind of getting there. Mekhi Becton's almost a must. Because otherwise,
now.
Right, exactly what I mean. So it's kind of intimidating, because then it goes into how I look at it. It's an entertainment business, so I look at what's entertaining to me. And so free agency, getting these guys on your checklist and hoping to God that they fall to you, that's entertaining. And so I definitely agree Dahlman's a big, big, big signing. Mekhi's going to be a big signing now. Because is he the front runner right now?
Well, he's got to be at this point. The people you were looking at was Dahlman as a center, Mekhi Becton as a guard, and Trey Smith as a guard, right? Those are your top three that you're going after, because obviously it's your interior. If you're going to, the biggest weakness of this team is the interior offensive line. So, So those are the biggest ones you have to go to. So now we know, as we've kind of forecasted here, our kind of led the story with Trey Smith obviously got franchise tagged. So the Bears cannot get him. So now that he's off the market, now, like you said, the must is now higher, right? It has to be. It goes from a want now to a certified need. So what does suck about that need that you're talking about and that must is the leverage is taken away in a way. Maybe not as much in free agency because we have a lot of money and that gives us a lot of leverage. But when you think about the draft, people know the Bears need an offensive lineman, right? And if it's not offensive line, they know they need a defensive lineman, right? When you go back to last year, that was a different story. Did we still need those two position groups? Absolutely. But we could have went so many different directions at 9, right? We actually didn't even think we wanted Rome, but we didn't think we were going to get Rome because we thought we were going to be off the board. And we were already talking ourselves into some defensive tackle, maybe some offensive linemen as well. So I feel now that, you look at this roster overall, secondary is pretty locked in. Obviously, the linebackers are locked in. Your D-line, no, right? You need a defensive tackle. You need a defensive end, right? And then the offensive line, we just talked about your interior, your front three. And you know what's crazy about that as well? It is a need because those guys aren't even under contract. It's different if it's like, oh, those guys suck, but at least they're under contract. It's like, well, maybe we could ride it out. Like, no, those guys, Tevin Jenkins, Coleman Shelton, and Pryor, I think all contracts are up, and we already let go of Nate Davis. So literally none of those guys could be there, and you literally have to fill 3 positions in the interior. So I say all that to back up your statement of like, it is a must because we literally do not have someone who is locked in to this season from a contract standpoint, which is scary, to be honest.
For sure.
Doesn't mean it can't get fixed.
Do you think that with Trey getting franchise tagged by the Chiefs, that the Bears do view I don't know, let me word this in a way where like prior to this, like we expected or had like a sense of confidence that Trey could land in Chicago. Had he landed in Chicago, we would have thought instantly that the offensive line is a massive, massive upgrade. With him now staying in KC, do you still think that there's a possibility, like a true, genuine possibility, that Ryan goes out and signs all these guys and can build a strong offensive line? Or do you think, because last week you said free agency is going to be a big one for the offensive line. So do you still think that, or do you think the draft is now going to have to take over a little bit?
Well, look, I mean, you obviously took a hit. It's the top guy in the market, okay? Like, it's obviously going to be harder now. Now, you do save money. You're not having to send out possibly up to $25 million per year for a guard, right? Probably be the highest guard in NFL history, to be honest. But you still got to fill those positions. My viewpoint of how to attack free agency, like to view it as a success, you needed to get at least 2 positions locked in from the interior line standpoint, okay? Center, I think, needs to be number 1, and then getting yourself one of the guards, right? Whoever it is, like that's a true starter. Doesn't have to, we're not asking for Hall of Famers here, but like a true starter would be an upgrade. So if you got 2 of those, I already think you've tremendously upgrade your offensive line. That leaves just one opening that you have to then worry about in the draft, okay? Free agency should be, in my opinion, I'm not a GM, but in my opinion, it should always be focused on needs first, so then you can do best player available when it comes to the draft, right? Because in free agency, you have more control. You can go talk to whoever, bring in whoever, right? While in the draft, you cannot. So, because you don't know how the cards are going to fall, right? You don't know who's going to pick in front of you and take this person, right? So because of that, you have to take advantage of like, okay, this is my only opportunity where I can go get who we need to fill our team, right? So I'm hoping that's the route they go, get at least 2. And then now to go back to the argument I was saying earlier, now it's not as much as, a need in the draft. So now you're not pigeonholed to be like, first pick's got to be an offensive lineman. It doesn't now. You can go best player available. But guess what? If you have 3 openings going into the draft, which they won't, but if you had 3 openings, yeah, your first pick is probably maybe your first 2. So now people, because they know what you're going after, they can jump in front of you. They can do, they can do things that are going to work against you in the draft. And so that's why I'm like, please just get 2 solid players. If it's Becton, if it's Dahlman, if it's Fries, the people out there, I don't care. If you can get 2 upgrades there, I feel much more comfortable about how you can approach with the best player available in the draft. But I think that's a good question. Like, do you feel differently, Jack? And welcome back, Dave.
Yeah, well, first of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Do I sound normal?
Yes, you do.
Audio's good. Oh,
yes.
My gosh. All right, Jack, you go ahead and finish there, and I'll finally be able to, I guess, contribute a little bit to this podcast episode. So sorry about that, y'all.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm good. Yeah, I like what Mike said here. So he said that I think the Bears are better off. Now they can get a few above average players rather than a great who uses up most of the cap. That's definitely a silver lining to look at. Like if there's a positive way to look at Trey not coming to Chicago, it's this. Is that like we talked about it with Micah. Like Micah's a $27 million man next year. And we talked about it. We were like, that eats up a lot of our cap for one guy. And we have holes that we need filled. While Trey is would have been one of those holes that could have been filled. Pause. I do think that it definitely helps, like salary wise, and then we can be able to get some depth. We get killed every year in depth.
We do.
Don't you feel like every year we get like
we have so many offensive line
Nate guard? We're like Nate Davis is here, but Nate Davis isn't playing for some reason, so we have to go to God knows who, like so the UPS guy off the street.
Yeah,
it'll be nice to be able to build like an actual competitive roster.
Yeah, so that's one thing, right? That's why I say I don't think Tevin's going to come back as the best ability as availability, but like we've had the center position's been injured for the past 2 years, right? The guys you bring in, they get injured, don't even play a snap, right? Mm-hmm. And then you had Matt Pryor coming in this year at guard because of the Nate Davis situation. Tevin obviously misses tons of games. So not only is it important that you upgraded the position, you're bringing in people that don't I mean, obviously injuries are going to happen, but that historically, when you look at their overall, game history, they play more than they miss. And that's huge. Even if it's someone like a Kevin Zeitler, who will pro guard, he's old now, very old. But if you bring him in a 1-year deal, last year, he played 16 games, right? Think about like Jason Peters, right? He was like 38 when he joined us, but he played every snap, okay? So I think even that alone, like just getting more snaps on the offensive line is an upgrade. So if you can get me 2 people, and maybe that goes to the silver lining, right? 2 above average. Well, how about like they play most of their games as well? You give me 2 of those, I feel much more comfortable. But I will say this to end it, and I'll go to you, Dave, to give your opinion on this. I will say that is silver lining. I agree with you. That's what I've been telling myself. But wasn't this the first year? And we've heard it from polls as well, right? Got to be aggressive in free agency. So, like, I know it had nothing to do with polls, like team franchise tags, and you can't do anything about it. But best believe we need to be going at those top quality, those great. I don't want 5 guys that are lower end. Get me 3 that are great or 2 that are great, and then backfill with that depth, right? And hopefully those guys can play long enough so when your depth pieces are actually your depth pieces and not your starters for most of the season. But Dave, how do you feel about? Let me preface what the conversation was. Basically, Jack was asking, "Are you more concerned with Trey Smith being gone that polls can actually upgrade the line like how we expected?" Because last episode we all felt like, "Hey, you get Trey Smith, you can get one other person. Like we feel really good. You can flip this around." And polls Ben Johnson mentioned how the Panthers did it in 1 year. But now we lose the big man in the market, obviously. Do you still feel confident that polls can get enough quality in there through draft free agency that we could turn this around now that Trey Smith's off the market?
Yeah. Can you hear me? First of all, I want to make sure. So yeah, regarding Trey Smith, obviously it's super disappointing. Like he was the guy that I definitely want to know. He would have cost a lot of money. The problem is, or the only reason I was so excited is the Bears have so many resources, especially money financially, where they could have landed Trey Smith and added 3 or 4 more caliber players to go alongside him, whether it's on the opposite side or even within the same offensive line. So very, very disappointed in Trey Smith. It makes sense now. I bet he's going to be in Kansas City, but now there's a possibility where if they can't get it, say he doesn't want to play on the tag, he wants a long-term deal, they can't get one, then it looks like you might be able to trade for him. However, he's probably going to cost some what? I'm not going to say a first, but perhaps a first. I don't even know. I don't even know what it would be because he's not on a contract. So, but yeah, it would be a little too much for me. But yeah, absolutely disappointed. However, there are still a lot of different options, routes they can go. You save money, right? You're going to be able to allocate that, otherwise. But the draft becomes that more important. Obviously, it was always, very, 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 very. It was going to be a big part of this offseason, but now I feel like it's even greater because of that franchise tag that KC did. So I don't know. For some reason, I didn't think KC was going to do it, but it makes sense. You saw it last in the Super Bowl, right? I mean, trenches is so important. That's why they lost that game for the most part. They were just kind of outclassed on both sides of the ball there. So for me personally, I'm not, I am, I'm not defeated, but it does suck. That was a big, big acquisition that I would have enjoyed to see the Bears land because I feel like everything's been going Chicago's way this offseason so far. And this would have been another domino to fall that would have felt really good. So to go back, I know I didn't get to talk about the combine. I am excited about the combine. However, I want to just say one thing. You guys may have said this, and maybe it's because the Bears aren't like getting national headlines right now because, there's no quarterback controversy. They don't have the first round pick or the first pick overall pick again, like they've had the back-to-back years. It just feels very lackluster. The highlight of it is two media powerhouses going at it.
Yeah, for sure. That is definitely,
that's the main story that's really caught my attention. Everything else, it just doesn't seem like it's been popping as much. And I feel like that goes back to our last episode, or maybe it was 2 episodes ago now, where we talked about some of these top guys, quarterbacks not throwing, what receivers not running routes, just meeting with teams. This happened last year with Marvin Harris Jr. That's one thing I liked about Rome, being able to compete, go out there and show what he has. So I feel like people, the high caliber stars, the big names not throwing or not participating, truly participating, kind of just makes it lackluster in my opinion. So I feel like this week has been kind of down in regards to what it is typically. And again, maybe it's just because the Chicago's doesn't have the number 1 pick again. So there's not as much buzz, at least in our market. So
also
how do you guys feel about that?
The special, the primary athletes haven't gone out there, right? So we still haven't seen run. Today was the first day; it was just D linemen. So I think once you get,
I'm just feeling
running backs,
buzz,
wide receivers. No, I mean that's fair. Look, we've had 2. We've been grateful to have 2 past off seasons where we had the number 1 overall pick and then another top 10 pick. So it's not gonna feel as big as those. And I think maybe that's going to have an effect, right? Because we just came off dynamic, really exciting off seasons.
Yeah.
And so, not having top 10 pick is still great. You can find a Hall of Famer there easily.
It's amazing.
Yeah, but I think it's just not having the top tier pick near the top. Also, it not being, as I was talking with Jack when you were out, Dave, we know that this is the trenches. We're picking probably our first pick is either side of the trenches, and that's not as exciting or sexy as last year. You knew it was Caleb, right? The year before that, you knew it was we were maybe a trade back, maybe a quarterback. There was way more ooh, what are we gonna do here type of stuff. And this one we're so sold in because we know the weakness of our team is the trenches. So
similar to even last year going with Caleb, what made it even more exciting was landing Rome. And even before we selected Rome Odunze, there was talk, there was prayer circles about landing him, right? If he was still available, because it felt like a steal. And I feel like I still believe that's true when it comes to Rome. This year, I feel like, it is not as flashy, but those flashes are going to come hopefully mid-September, October, where Caleb's actually going to have time to make some plays that we expect him to make last year. Right. So I'm cool with it. Might not be flashy, but I'm excited, man, to get to know these guys that they draft because they have some really high picks inside the top 75. So
yeah,
I'm excited. It's going to be fun. But that's another thing to kind of go to finish up and wrap up the, I guess, the bad news about free agency when it comes to Trey Smith is landing him. Say Casey lets him hit the market, landing him, adding a center. It allows you to kind of get a little creative with that first round pick, which is 10th overall, right? Yep. So you can go running back, Gency. You could go. Now it's almost okay, no, it is gonna be in the trenches. So
that's what I was telling Jack while you were out. I'm last year at 9, there were so many different possibilities of which we could go. So there's excitement around that. Also, you have more leverage because teams don't know where you're going. The issue is with us now, everybody and their mother knows that that the Bears need to upgrade in the trenches. And if they miss out even more, right, in free agency on particularly offensive line, then you're definitely going to know that they're going offensive line with that first pick, or Ryan Poles will probably be out of a job. So you're saying exactly what we were preaching here earlier. So I think it's kind of taking a little bit of excitement of it because we know it's either defensive end, defensive tackle, or some guard or tackle on offense. So.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads me to, we can maybe skip around because this kind of really leads to the approach, because this week, Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson both spoke to the media, which is hilarious because I thought Poles was not. Last pod, we talked about, should we be worried? This is unique because Poles is always so open. Of course, the very next day he meets with the media.
Like everybody.
Everybody surrounded him. So First of all, do I sound normal? I just want to make sure. I just
you're
did some audio cues. Good. I don't even know what was happening. That's the funny thing. I just turned my computer off, turned it back on, and I guess it worked.
Technology, man. It'd be like
technology. But this is about Poles because he kind of gave away some of his intentions about that 10th overall pick. Because of course everyone's talking about, everyone's asking about, some of his plans, free agency, of course, the draft. This is what Poles had to say when asked about it. He goes, really, the approach is the same. We're just trying to gather as much information about the players that we interact with, talking about being at the combine. That's what this is for, really getting to know the players outside the film. We know sitting at 10, there's probably going to be some really good opportunities for us to improve our football team. But with this draft, there's also enough depth in the first round that I believe you could actually move back a little and still pick up a good to great player. And again, is it going to be GM speak? Is he just trying to, throw some smoke out there? For me with Poles, I really do think not that he is clever, right? He is going to, like with Justin Fields, right? Not that he handled it perfectly, that's up for debate, but he does play a little bit with the media, send some smoke screens out there. This one though, the way he said it, body language, I really truly believe he's going to, and he's done it before. This isn't something new of his as far as trading back. Jalen Carter, huge debate a couple of weeks ago with the Super Bowl. I could see him trading back from this one, maybe not far, but to accumulate just a few more picks, because that's what he does. So my question for you guys, do you want to stay there? And this is, I think we've heard this so many times, but would you prefer to stay? Say there's Will Campbell, is he even going to be there? Probably not. But
no, that's the thing. That's what's so hard about this.
Would you guys prefer to move back, or would you want to stay and just draft best player available? Or really does it depend how the board falls on draft night?
Well, I think it definitely is going to play into how the board falls for either way you want to go. But I might actually do you even better. Say Mason Graham falls to 6, trade up. That's like a blue chip player. Look, you're talking about Ben Johnson came in here. I'm not saying this is that we need to trade up, but I'm just putting out kind of a hypothetical here. But Ben Johnson comes out and says, hey, we need to, this is win now territory. So if one of those players, or even Will Campbell, let's say he's hit it around 7, 8, right? And you really want to get that guy, number 1 tackle on the board, or even Kelvin Banks, they're kind of depend on who you ask. But do you go up there and just get your guy? Because guess what? A trade up is always worth it if the guy you traded up for is a baller, right? No one ever worries about what you gave up for it. If the guy, for example, the Bills traded up for Josh Allen, I believe, right? No one even remembers what they gave away for that because you got fucking Josh Allen. So
they do remember what you gave up for Mitchell Trubisky.
Yes, they do.
That's where it comes into play.
That was good value. That's all it was.
For sure.
For San Francisco.
Not for my mental health. But yeah, of course, you got Trey Lance as well. Obviously, when it goes wrong, it's wrong. So I'm not as concerned with trading up or trading back. I'm more concerned with getting the right guy. Because even if you trade back and you get someone's right? Actually, we just talked about this, right? I don't think Darnell Wright's don't get me wrong. But you trade back and you get Darnell Wright. Well, you stay there, you got Jalen Carter, right? Some people will look at that and go, well, you did get more value back, which is good, but you also didn't get Jalen Carter. So I just want you to get the right guy. If you have to go up and get him, cool. If you have to drop back because he's going to be sitting there later and you get value in return, great. For excitement, I'd love a trade up. For obviously a value standpoint, I would like a trade back. But I think what's good about this draft, and like you said, Dave, anything is really possible because it is a pretty heavy depth class. There's only a couple blue chips compared to some other draft classes of recent. And so I think you can find a lot of good talent later on. So
I think I fall in that same mindset of view this year where it's we have accumulated picks, right? Jalen Carter, we traded back. We've seen polls with Carolina traded the number 1 pick. For me personally, I want similar to his approach in free agents where he said he's going to be aggressive. I want them to be aggressive in the draft because yes, there is value in adding some picks, but there's only so much impact typically that a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounder can do. For me, trade up to number 6, guarantee yourself an impact blue chip guy more often than not. Same thing with the 2nd rounders. Be aggressive. If you know there's a guy you want, for me, it's just I want talent, real blue chip talent added. And I want 3 or 4 of them through the draft. And also you can add 3 to 4 more maybe good to great, depending on who walks, who's available. For me, I want impact best players, this draft. I don't really want to value a fourth rounder or fifth rounder, even though they can make an impact, right? Darnell Mooney, Torrey Taylor, of course,
Eddie Jackson.
Yeah, but for me, I just personally, I just want to come around like those first 3 picks. I want them to be like, obviously we're not going to know if they're going to be hit, like if they're going to work out, but just get the best players. And if that moves moving up to 7, 8, I like it if it makes sense. Obviously, you don't want to get taken advantage of, but Poles and company, Ian Cunningham, they're very, very smart when it comes to their capital. So I trust them in that regard. But for me, this draft and even free agency, I want them to be aggressive, right? And that means not even in the draft, like aggressive. They don't even have to trade up. I mean, it can be just sticking like last year, going with Jalen Carter, because that would have been an aggressive move. A risky player, especially coming into Chicago, where it's probably not the locker room. It just obviously was not. Cards. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Based off the report cards, that would have not.
Which we'll get to. But for me, it's like just go and get the guy that's going to be, is going to be a dog, right? Like that's how I feel. And again, no slight to Darnell Wright. We know we love him. He's very, very good. And I think we're in a good spot because of that pick. But at the same time, this draft, I just want to see some aggressiveness. And then, of course, BPA for the most part. And so we'll see. Yeah, but Ian Cunningham is back, so he may not let him trade up.
Yeah, for sure. He may not. As he's chewing aggressively on his gum.
No, you're good. I just was going to say I agree with you. And the guy I always tell everyone and compare him to is Joe Alt. Obviously went higher than 10 and went way
5.
Sooner.
Correct. 5. Yeah.
But like at that time, like we all knew and LA knew for sure that he was just going to be a good player. And I think that's kind of what you're implying, Dave, is like we just want somebody, because even with Darnell's kind of tough because we know he's a good player. Like he was 5-star, everything, top 10 player for a reason. But at the same time, we're kind of like, is he still like the guy forever, for the next 10 years? Joe Alt, we kind of already made that assumption pre-draft, was like, he's going to be that guy. So I agree with you, is like, let's go up and let's get someone like Joe Alt that we just know is going to be a good NFL player. And we can just put our eggs in that basket and not worry about that position for another 10 years.
Yeah. And maybe you could risk, maybe you can even say you keep your 2 seconds, right? And then maybe use some capital in 2026 to move up a couple spots from 10 to 7 or 10 to 6 to get somebody like that you truly, truly want, that's going to make an impact and going to help advance and develop Caleb Williams, because that's the ultimate goal. Everything they do this offseason already with Ben Johnson is about the development of Caleb Williams, because right now they already said they're going to tear him down and they're going to redo this thing. So for me, you're already kind of falling behind, but if you want to jumpstart that means talent on the trenches, skill players everywhere. So what were you saying, Vic, though?
No, I mean, that's a great point. And look, this draft, they got 8 picks, right? They got 2, they have 7, I think, right? So they have 2 second rounders. One of those can easily be, and it's an early second, right? So the value of that is high. Actually, both of them are 39 and 41. Like you can easily use one of those to trade up to get those players. The only issue is it takes 2 to tango, right? Obviously, these teams ahead also want blue chip talent players. Now, it doesn't mean trades won't happen. They happen all the time, some years more than others. But, if that opportunity arises, I'm excited because they have the ammunition to do so. And so we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, we don't know how good these players are going to be, how they set their boards. They don't even know that fully yet. The combine's going on as we speak. But it will be exciting to see once we step away and look at the end of the offseason, how we kind of feel about the aggressiveness that they put forth there, and kind of saying, did they do what they said? Because typically, like you said, Dave, they kind of obviously Poles has his GM media speak, but he kind of sticks to what he says he's going to do, right? Now, whether those turn out well, right? Like a Chase Claypool, whatever, but he's like, oh, we're going to get weapons or something, he'll go out and do it. So I feel like he's not known to be lying or where you have to read between the lines. He's kind of straightforward. So I feel like they're going to be more aggressive than what we've seen in the past. Is that free agency? Is that the draft? Who knows? We'll find out.
And that's why for me personally, Will Campbell, I think he's a top 10 pick easily, of course, but
yeah,
where he goes, I see him at 8, I see him at 5, sometimes 4. That's who I want. Left tackle. I love Braxton Jones. I do. For like maybe an average player, backup, maybe can step in if someone gets hurt for an extended period of time. Campbell and Wright, I feel like could be just locked down your future. And then, of course, you can build through free agency, some veterans on the inside that line. So for me, I mean, Will Campbell, it just seems like a great fit right now. And that's where I feel like they would have to be aggressive because he's not going to be there. He's just not going to be there at 10. He's just
the question is, where is he going to play? Because we'll find out here because the offensive line hasn't done their combine, but he's known to have shorter arms, and that does play a part for tackles, significantly for tackles. But it's a lot of people have him projected as guard, right? So, and you see that move all the time with even some top 10 tackle picks. They get moved down to guard. Happens all the time. So it'll be interesting to see how they
evaluate. He was a 3-year starter at left tackle.
Right. But that happens.
I really wonder if he could. Yeah.
No, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but you see it happen a lot where the guys play tackle all through college, right? They go to the NFL, their measurements to fit them more as guard. They get actually speaking of that, you know who played tackle all through college? Tevin Jenkins. He was right tackle for Oklahoma State. Yeah. For his whole career. And what happened? He played a little bit of tackle, but they bumped him down the guard. So you think he'd be
below average as a tackle, which I think
no, I don't think so. I don't look, I don't study these classes, so I'm not going to say what he can be. I'm not putting a cap on him. I'm saying though, he could be a great tackle, but he could be a great guard. So I'm wondering and we'll find out here more.
Or he could be a good tackle, great guard.
Exactly. I don't know. I want to know how people are evaluating him. Because I think that will play a big part on whether or not the Bears decide, is that worth the 10? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter
because he's like
the best player available.
I know his arm length is because that is a big deal. I mean, but he's 6'6", dude. He's just a monster. He's just a monster. So, but I just either way say he does go in guard. I mean, you're feeling a need there, a huge.
I mean, look, I agree. I'm best player available. Get whoever you need to get. But it's just it's just something to the things you take away from the combine is some of that stuff does determine on where they see these type of players fit best. But we draft
Will Campbell, versatility too. Not that you ever want it to happen, but say he needs to move outside for some ungodly reason for a game or two or stretch during the season. Interesting. So I'm excited about the draft. I'm excited about last year we had an insanely fun we went the whole round, right? The whole four.
Yeah, we did.
The whole first round.
Yeah,
which was nuts. But
odd today, I think it ended up being
5 hours. 4 hours.
It was definitely the longest.
Yeah, it was 4 for sure.
Never ended.
No, it didn't.
It never ended.
Just like the first round, it never ends. It doesn't start on time. And I swear to God, just last year, that first. Bro, it's like 15. You get 15 minutes per pick. Do the math. 15 times 32. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's the time in between each clock.
I wore a suit. I think I took off the jacket
at a hotel, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was at a hotel. Yep.
Yeah, I do know. I don't remember. I got good memory.
That was a fun one, and I'm excited to do it again.
I don't know if we're doing the full round. I might suit up again for it.
No. That draft show. That was Caleb Williams night, so had to.
Oh, Will Campbell's not worth it anymore. You're just talking him up.
Hey, Will Campbell. Official right here on the BFR pod, Dave_BFR on all socials. Hate Will Campbell.
Hates his short arms.
Hates his little tiny T-Rex arms.
Oh, man. This is outrageous. I can't. You're all facts. 100%. The truth. All right. Anyways, let's go and get an ad read here again. First of all, I want to say thank you for support. You guys have been amazing. I know it's the off season, but you guys have been crazy. It's a little sickening how many people Bears fans still love to consume Bears content. I mean, I'm the same boat, but
we got a show about it. So,
but let's go and get to our ad read here, and then we have a couple more topics before we end the show.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, first off, like Dave said, if you're here, we really do appreciate it. Thank you for being sickos just like us and joining the BFR show, the podcast, which is the #1 show for the fans, by the fans, because Dave, Jack, and I are fans like y'all. We get excited about the combine. We get excited about the draft just like y'all do. And we get excited about the season, and we just love that you guys are here with us. So if this is your first time, again, thank you for joining the #1 show by the fans, for the fans. If this is your first time, please give a hashtag new face gang in the chat. We'll make sure to give you a shout out before the end of the show. Also, if this is not your first time, which I know there's a bunch of you OGs in the chat right now going at it, please give a hashtag OG. We'll give you a shout out like we always do. So we really do appreciate that, because what we're doing right here is trying to build a community of diehard Bear fans like y'all, like us. And if you want to join that community, you can go ahead and join our Patreon, the BFR Den on Patreon. We have a bunch of great monthly exclusives, like monthly giveaways, which we just gave away our January and February BFR merch to Chris and Phil. We have our private Zoom calls, which we do monthly. That'll be with Dave, Jack, and I, and all of the Patreon members. And then we have our mailbag episodes, which we just dropped this week. And we're working on much more content and bringing value to y'all. So if you want to join, please do that. Also, if you join, you get a shout out. So let's give a shout out to our Hall of Fame Grizzly members. We got Michael from across the pond, Gage, Phil, and Michael Berry. I see a lot of you guys are in the chat already today. We appreciate y'all. Y'all are fantastic. Hall of Fame Grizzlies, it's like $10 a month, but you get that private Zoom call once a month, which is awesome. We love doing it. They love being a part of it. It's been growing ever since, and we just love doing that. It's definitely worth it. And then shout out to our Rookie Grizzlies, which is $3 a month, less than a cup of coffee. Give a shout out to Alex, Brian, Chris, Jason, and Eston. I saw Alex in the comments. Shout out to you. With this, you get access to our private Discord. You still get the monthly giveaways. You still get the mailbag episodes. You know, a bunch of great stuff on there. And you can just communicate with us on there as well. So if you want to join the ongoing community, go to the BFR Den on Patreon. Shout out to all of y'all. We really do appreciate it. Also, if you want to support us as well, you can go to the BFRstore.com, where we do have merch, hoodies, shirts, hats, and this is part of the giveaway stuff too. We'll be giving these out every month if you join the Patreon. But if you also want to support us, go ahead and go to the BFRstore.com. And we have new merch coming out soon. Gonna probably drop it around draft week. So really excited about that. And our Patreon members, they don't know about this, but they're going to get first access to this stuff. So stay tuned for that. If you want first access, please join the Patreon. All the proceeds from both the Patreon, BFR store, go right back into the show just to make the show better. You know, make sure our equipment doesn't go out, all that great stuff, right? So we really do appreciate it, right? No, because trust me, mine's gone out as well. So we really do appreciate the love and support. And if you don't want to support fiscally, that's totally fine. Thumbs up, like the episode, subscribe if you haven't already. It helps push the show out to more fans like y'all. And we really do appreciate all the love and support. And one last thing, make sure, hashtag new face gang. If you're new here, hashtag OG. Want to give a shout out to y'all at the end of the show, because again, we want to show love to the fans, because this is the number one show for the fans, by the fans. Back to you, Dave.
No, absolutely. Best thing you do, hit that thumbs up button, and of course, subscribe if you haven't. So let's see here. I want to go ahead and touch base on this one because I didn't really get to give my too much thoughts on it, but the NFL Player Association report cards were released, and I love these, man. I love them. And the Bears, honestly, they are performing better and better every single year, which is honestly surprising, especially for some of these categories. So if you have not, if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, the NFLPA report cards every year, they poll players anonymously, and they go through and they get these rankings and everything like that. So the Chicago Bears actually ranked 14th overall in this year's survey. The description, they said they continue to provide high quality facility, which players appreciate. The players' most frequent complaint was their former head coach, Matt Eberflus. The players felt like he lacked a willingness to listen to the players and the Players Leadership Council and mismanaged the weekly team schedule. Oh, man. After the team completed the survey, the Bears terminated Eberflus and hired Ben Johnson as their new head coach. It will be interesting for the players to see if there's some areas changed next year. Honestly, Eberflus continuing to take strays, man. It is so funny to me. I feel bad a little bit. Like I shouldn't, but I do. But yes, to go to the head coach, the Bears finished ranked. They got a C, but that was 32nd in the NFL. So out of 32 teams, they were last. 59% of the Bears players feel their former head coach, Matt Eberflus, was efficient with their time, a rank of 30 out of 32. The players reported that Eberflus was moderately receptive to a locker room feedback on the team's needs, ranking him 31 out of 32 head coaches in the NFL. So before we get to the positives, any comments here about Flus and some of this It's just bad, man. It really got bad in his final season. But any shock, any surprise here regarding this new info? I guess
lost 10 games. You lost 10 games in a row. This makes sense, right?
It was refusing to change.
That's why it's called a losing streak for a reason. You didn't switch things up. So I am not surprised. Now, if you'd have said that last year, I would if the report card said that last year, I'd have been a little surprised because they kind of played their asses off in the back half of that season. So I'm like, interesting. Like the results don't match up. But after now that we've had the full tenure of Flus, you're kind of like, yeah, this is why you were the lowest winning percentage.
Wasn't he a B last year?
Yeah, he was better last year.
Like, it is a real high drop off. I think he was middle of the pack last year.
Yeah, probably like lower mid. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think he was like in the 20s, early 20s.
But it is just it is crazy how bad it truly got. I wish there was one for Shane Waldron because God, that would have been tough. But let's go through some of these other categories. Treatment of families, I think is super, obviously super important. Bears got a C+, which is 19th in the NFL. Food and dining, they got a C+, which was 22nd in the NFL. Nutritionist, dietitian, they got a B, 19th NFL. Locker room, this is where they were 8th in the NFL. Went ahead and said 94% of players feel they have enough room in the locker rooms. Also, only the Bears were one of 5 teams to get a perfect score on where the players believe the locker room size is adequate. And if you look at some of these comparisons, I think you sent
Steelers.
One, Ficky.
Yeah,
the Cardinals.
Cardinals, not great.
Is trash. So you do see some of these differences around the league and where the ownership is willing to spend. So Bears did amazing there, ranked 8th in the locker room. Training room, they were 11th, got a B+. Training staff was a B. That's 17th in NFL. The weight room, the Bears' highest grade was the weight room, 6th in the NFL. Let's see here. Where are we going? Lost my spot. So, and then it goes to strength coaches, which is a B+, 20th in the NFL. Team travel was a B, 19th. Head coach, of course, we already addressed that, 32nd. This is what I want to talk to here in a minute. The final one. This one shocked me. And it was ownership. The Bears got an A-, 13th in the NFL out of course, 32 teams. This is what they had to say here. The McCaskey's family average rating for perceived willingness to invest in the facilities is 9 out of 10. That makes sense to me. I think they're doing a great job. That started with Ryan Pace.
Yep.
The remodel over there is why they moved training camp from Bourbonnais to Hallis Hall. You want to utilize what they built and the money they put in there. The players feel that the McCaskey family moderately contributes to a positive team culture, a rank 15th out of 32. And then the players feel that the McCaskey family is extremely committed to building a competitive team, which was 14th in the NFL ranking. So that last one, building a winning team, I think that's important. I think that shows some of the strides they've made in the last couple of years, even though they're not winning. But thoughts on that, boys, in regards to just ownership? Because I think it's it fluctuates, I think. Because I think before Ben Johnson, it was pitchforks. It was, I'm tired. We're going to, raid Hallis Hall. And then you sign Ben Johnson to land the number 1 target. And I think a lot of people are feeling really, really good about the Bears. And I don't think there's as much complaining at the forefront, at least right now, of the ownership. But are you surprised about this grade? It's pretty damn high.
No, but I think it was the biggest standout because that's the same thing I was thinking of. I think I talked about it at the end of last season. People are like, sell the team. I'm like, look, one of the worst owners is the Chiefs ownership, and they win games. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think the weight of the owner, like, obviously, if they're not putting money into the team, like, they're not trying to help the team be better, like from facilities or like, providing things for the players that can help them be better, then yes, that will equate more to wins and losses. But in this case, we know that the McCaskies have been throwing money. Kevin Warren, right? Since Kevin Warren's gotten here, the report cards have gotten better and better. So they paid Kevin Warren. Obviously, the Hallis Hall's gotten better every year. Shout out to Ryan Pace for starting that whole thing, right? So I'm not as surprised because, like, the human aspect of the ownership is like people like the McCaskies. They're good people. They're out there. They do a lot of social work. You know, they appear like your average day man. He's out there. George McCaskey's out there at the tailgates talking to people. And the team just hasn't been good. So I'm not as concerned about what the ownership is doing. I'm more concerned about what my GM is doing and what my head coach is doing. And so far, the head coach has not been good for a long time, and Poles is still up in the air. It helps when you have your quarterback. So I think that's what's more concerning is like if there was a grade for roster construction, like I would care more about what that is because that equates more to winning or losing. Looking at the Eagles, why have they been so good? Because Howie Roseman has been able to retool 3 teams to get to Super Bowls, and he's won 2 of them. Like with multiple quarterbacks, right? Jalen Hurts, Nick Foles, Carson Wentz. Like the GM has been able to get the right talent in and give them an opportunity to make it back to the championship. No one's asking about their ownership over there. Even if their owners were horrible or great, no one cares. They always talk about Howie Roseman because he's getting the right people in there. And obviously having a good coach, Nick Sirianni, right, helps as well. So all of this stuff is great from a high level view. Like you obviously want to be high up there in the report card. But at the end of the day, if you want to know like what equates to winning, maybe like your weight room, but it's really going to be your strength coach, right, in the program he has. Maybe nutrition, because obviously that, you know, getting the bodies right. But a lot of the rest of the stuff isn't as important. Like if your plane sucks, okay, if you have great players, they're going to ball out. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you didn't invite their families to the game. Okay, it doesn't matter. We have Justin Jefferson. He's going off. Like, you know, you obviously want to treat all the people right. And I want us to have the highest of grades, but some of that stuff doesn't correlate heavy to like, is this team good or not? And we're a great example. 14th in the league. Well, guess what? The past 3 years, we've had the worst winning percentage. So
yeah, I think the one thing that stands out for McCaskey, especially this offseason, is they're willing to pay, right? That was one of the biggest topics. Are you willing to pay what it takes to land Ben Johnson? Because it was going to be expensive. And it was $13.5 million,
13 or something like that, 13, 14
a year. So hats off to him. He did his job. He impacted where he's supposed to, where he can. And so, very, very cool, at least to see the Bears. You'd hate to be – I mean, there was a picture of the Cardinals floating around that locker room where they had, you know, those basic chairs that you get like where you're at like a picnic or not even a picnic, but like a –
like almost like the church. They're like the church chairs. You know what I mean?
I think the church chairs are better.
Might be better.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Seriously, like this is like – it was like those the chairs at like Walmart,
lawn chairs.
Man.
You're thinking of like lawn chairs. That's what you're thinking of, right?
There's better lawn chairs than what I saw. Honestly, it was that bad.
Have you seen the Steelers? Have you seen the Steelers one?
Dude.
It looks so old. It's like so old. And I'm like, bro, you are a franchise that has won 6. Like you're a top franchise. These Steelers haven't had a losing season in 16 years, but yet your locker room is from 1946. It's incredible.
And they can make a lot of money too, right? Like
that's what I'm saying. It doesn't equate to the wins. Obviously, I think we all want, you know, this stuff to be better because you know what? We talked about free agency, right? And attracting new players. Having these good grades from a fan perspective, whatever, like we can talk about it and whatever, but from a player perspective, this does matter some sort. Like when these free agents are like, where do I want to go? What place is attractive? Obviously, money's important. So if you have the most money, you're already in the contention. But if it's 2 people that are kind of close, right, you're going to look at winning and you're going to look at how they treat the players. So I still feel it is good that the Bears are, you know, 14th. They're up there, right, middle of the pack, or at least closer to the higher in some marks, because you are an attractive area, and how people view you, even from like head coaches, if they want to go to the Chicago Bears, or assistant coaches and whatnot, we're changing the narrative of like the Bears being dog shit, like as a organization, to now being like, oh no, they kind of know what they're doing. And I think a lot of credit goes to Kevin Warren, credit all around, but goes there. But Jack, is there something on there where you're like, man, I really wish this was up higher? Like, or you kind of viewing it like whatever, like they're good enough, like let's just go get some wins, or some other perspective?
There were 2 notable things. I was not looking for a bottle of whiskey. I was doing research because that's what I do. Last year, Bears ownership ranked 25th when respondents were asked if they believe ownership is willing to spend money to upgrade their facilities. So that's obviously a huge improvement.
Oh, yeah.
We're improving. Number 2 that caught my eye was we were 18th in nutrition with D+, and now we're at a B. So boys are getting healthier, and we're opening up the checkbooks, which are 2 great things. But yeah, like you said, Ficky, a lot of the things, it's funny. because again, we're paying these guys millions on millions on millions of dollars, money that most of us here will never see in our lifetime. And it's funny to hear like these reviews come back, and it's like we didn't get enough room in the hotel, or we didn't have like the plane wasn't comfortable enough. Like I really don't give a fuck. Throw 4,000 yards, and I really couldn't care less here, you know.
For sure.
So yeah, it's great. It's fun to read them, especially some of them are interesting. Like it is interesting to see how they take care of families and stuff like that. Like we got a bonus for having a family room at Soldier Field, and then like I've been in there. It's nothing special. It is smaller than my family room, or it's about the same size. Like, it is nothing crazy. But again, it's funny to just think of these guys being like, you know what, I'm not comfortable, or I feel like
this rubbed me the wrong way, honestly.
Yeah,
exactly. But yeah,
just feel like these are millionaires. But I get it. It's millionaires compared to other millionaires, so they're comparing. But I get it. It's kind of like
common man was like, you know what, not enough room on this flight. Maybe they'll be like, you know what, we'd love to work on that in the future. When I have a 6'6", 350-pound offensive lineman saying that, tough shit, man, get smaller. Like that's why you're paying $3 million a year. You know,
I asked for no ice, and they gave me ice in my for my Sprite.
Ownership doesn't care about my family because they gave me the wrong drink.
Yeah.
I think there's
they
like
gave
a
me
couple
15 tickets, and I needed 40.
Yeah.
For a home.
Well, like
game.
Tyson, what was that? Tyson Bagent for the preseason. Sorry, the Tyson Bagent for the preseason. He had like 45.
He's the reason there's a rule now.
yeah, for sure. I mean, there are some where I'm like, maybe it does correlate a little bit more. So like weight room. Obviously, you need a good strength and conditioning coach, but like having all the right equipment is definitely important. I feel like that would have some impact on the field. Nutrition. I feel like that would have some impact on the field. Head coach. Obviously, that one definitely correlates to win. I'm sure if you look at Andy Reid's report card, it's probably number one. Okay. So I think like those three, some of those you're like, okay, let's keep improving those. From a winning perspective, I care less about all the other stuff, right? Like as long as the plane can get up in the air and get them from A to B, and then they can win and it gets them back from B to A, great job.
Well, hey, speaking of A to B, B to A, final topic here I want to get to before we, close the pod. Looks like the Bears are getting a new stadium in a new location. All signs are pointing to Arlington Heights. A lot of details. Go look for yourselves. Look up Bears Stadium talk. You'll see, I think, they closed on some advanced plan. What was it, Ficky?
It was a Chicago Tribune had posted that they had already started working on negotiating traffic and that's another word they use, but basically trying to figure out how they're going to handle traffic and road construction for Arlington Heights. So once you start to hear like more of like the politicking behind the work stuff, it starts to feel like, Also with that, now we don't know how these are credible. This week, there hasn't been much talk about Arlington Heights like the previous like couple of weeks, right? And this week, there's been like, no, these aren't like credible sources, but there's been a bunch of sources coming up like it's happening. And then literally right before this episode, Chicago Tribune dropped that. And that's a credible source. So it feels like momentum is starting to turn towards Arlington Heights. And Kevin Warren, I can't remember where this was. Kevin Warren said 2025, there will be shovel in the ground. So, I mean, we're only 3 months in. That could be the end of 2025. That could be in the next couple of months. But I think a decision will be made. I'm going to say sooner than later. And then one final thing, and I would love your guys' thoughts. The final rumor I saw was that they're going to announce it draft night. And I believe last draft, they announced the stadium whatever, right? Wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was last draft. They announced like, here's the projections of what we're going to build at what do they call it? Museum, whatever.
Didn't they reveal on draft night another team's new stadium plans and that they were going to host a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think they did. Who was that? That wasn't the Bills, was it?
Jacksonville's.
Yeah, Jacksonville agreed. Yep.
Yeah. But I've heard, and like I said, a lot of rumors. I've heard the same thing where they are going to announce it, and also the Bears are going to get a Super Bowl on their inaugural season. So when the first year when it's open to the play and it's ready to be played on, boom, Super Bowl for the Bears.
The NFL typically likes to do that with their stadiums. They did that with Mercedes-Benz down here, Falcon Stadium. Fantastic stadium, by the way. Speaking of locker rooms, look at their locker room, the Falcons one. I think it was actually what I shared. Bro, first of all, that stadium, I love that stadium. I live like just down the road from it. Top quality stadium. Like, And the one that the Bears are proposing to build in Arlington, I think it's from a tech and like modern standpoint is going to fit that because you have to keep up with the Joneses. So I am super, super excited about it. But before I start to give my opinion on like the Arlington Heights move, Jack, are you okay with the move to Arlington Heights? Do you hate the idea? Do you want him to stay in Chicago? What's your thoughts on this?
Weird change. Everyone hates change. So I'm not against it at all. Like, I'm definitely for it. I think it'll be awesome to just have it in general in the area of Chicago. We have some guys in the chat saying, obviously, like, you're messing up the pastime and like it's always been here, leave it here, that type of thing. I get it. I could fight for both sides. I do think, however, it's a fantastic move. It builds, it'll be able to build, what is it, camaraderie, I guess?
Yeah. A community behind it too.
Big word, Jack.
Plus they own it.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
and Wrigley Field, for all the Chicago guys, like when they renovated the entire area, there were new restaurants and new clubs, and then all these things added in. It became a mini town. Like everyone always says, Jerry's World. Jerry's World is modern stadiums now at this point. Like you build a little community. So again, I'm all for it. There's not a single reason I would say no. I don't know what the opposition would argue, I guess. But yeah.
Can I say one thing before I go to you, Dave? It'll be quick. I know the argument about like, oh, but you're ruining all the history, blah, blah, blah. Can I remind you that this team hasn't been like good? Like there's history of like the 80s. You know what I mean? Like that's when Soldier Field like just started to get open. They moved from Wrigley Field. But like realistically, this stadium, which isn't great, hasn't really had great history. So, but
I think it's the I think it's the lakefront, right? It's the open stadium, right? There's no dome. It's bare weather. You hear that. I think the iconic shots where you're playing at home and they, the camera, you see, it's nostalgic. It looks great. It looks cool. Heard about this one that it's going to be a dome, not even retractable. So bye bare weather. So there's going to be a lot of change, but I think it's good. I really do. If they execute whatever route they go, I really truly believe it's going to be awesome. However, if they are going to build in Arlington, I think they have a way better opportunity to make it more like a Jerry World type-esque. And if you're building in Chicago, I just feel like it's limited because of just space. Right? Parking. It's going to be not as convenient for the building, and then of course fans and everything like that. So
with the new rendering, no, you said that iconic word, parking, with the new renderings, which looked fantastic, like the ones in Chicago. If they built that, I'm not complaining. Okay, there was no parking. There's barely any parking now, and I don't know if you've like the tailgate scene, like it's still tailgatey, but like the level that you could raise that tailgate, like a Bills tailgate, because the space they have. Even Green Bay has some pretty crazy tailgates. Like having that parking lot, like not only like you're building more of a community and a fan base of dark because you get to bring more people together. So I think it's like better for your brand. Obviously, it's going to help them with money wise because they'll own it. But it feels hard for me to think on the ownership side that there's anything more benefit, like staying in Chicago. What do you gain more from there other than maybe pleasing some fans? Like when you're talking about financials, when you're talking about the economy that you can bring, right? The events you can throw, like a Super Bowl, you can't do that in Chicago. And it sucks. Like you said, the iconic views from a fan when we're watching Sunday Night Football and we're getting beat 40-0 by the Packers. That view is like the best part of the game, But what's also better? Having a dome where your quarterback throws for 4,000 yards and you win. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
No, for sure. It'll be interesting to see if Kevin Warren and the team can actually break ground and we can see exactly where it's going to be. But let's go and get to our shout outs, our OGs, Fick, if you don't mind.
Yes,
and then we'll wrap this one up. And it's moving. Free agency is right around the corner. We look forward to that. And again, appreciate the support. And let's go ahead and get some shout outs here.
Real quick, we have a voicemail from Michael.
Oh, cool.
Do you remember? He left it in the middle of the show.
Let's do it.
Bear down, and I can't emphasize this enough. Fuck the Packers. Bears going to win the offseason. Bear down, baby. Let's go.
One a week we get those. I love it.
I like it. Yeah, I know. Yeah. We beat them.
Yeah, we'll beat them.
Heck yeah.
Week 1. I'm sure we're going to play week 1. So Before we get to the chats, I did see one question from Michael who just did that. He says, Ficky's from GA. No, I just live in Atlanta. Originally from like northern Indiana. We're actually, me and Dave both. So we're all near the area.
Real quick, this is the first time in BFR podcast history I've ever done this in my life. I forgot to show a super chat. I fucked up.
Oh, that's okay.
Tito left this a long time ago. And I had it on the mind, and I just
that's happened. Look,
it's the whiskey.
I've missed plenty of these. Yes, the whiskey.
I'm drunk, dude. I'm sorry.
All right, Tito, thank you so much. If you're still here, first off, thank you. As always, we do appreciate you. With the $5 super chat here on YouTube said, no Smith, no problem. Dahlman and Zeitler on the way and a guard in the draft. These defensive ends look good. Most definitely can get a stud in the second. We talked about that. Dahlman, automatically an upgrade at center. You get Zeitler on a 1-year deal. I'm not mad about it. So definitely we have a lot of options.
I like it. Thank you though, Tito.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Blame Jack.
Yeah, blame Jack. Hashtag blame Jack. Throw him in the chats. Okay, Michael Berry Sr. here, who just gave the voicemail. Appreciate that. Said, hashtag OG won't get Trey, but we're still winning the offseason. Damn it. F the Packers. Got that right. Richard D. Woodhouse on Facebook with the hashtag OG. We appreciate our Facebook watchers as well. Everybody who watches, but really do appreciate that. Romy here on YouTube with the hashtag OG. Now go get fries, Becton, and Dahlman. For some reason, I was reading fries, bacon, and something else. So I'm definitely hungry at this moment. But yes, I would not be mad about that offseason. Alex Hamilton here, Rookie Grizzly, hashtag OG Bear Down. Thank you so much, Alex. Imperil here, True OG said, fuck Trey Smith. He's not a bear because he's got TFR, tiny effing rod, not BFR, like us here in the BFR community. Also, BFR, the big effing revenue show. I know Jack said like we would never have millions, but we're the BFR show. Come on now. Caleb here.
I haven't my check yet. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm waiting on mine.
For sure.
Zelle, cash, check, you name it, I got it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll take a check.
Yeah, for sure. Caleb here on YouTube said hashtag OG. Appreciate that, Caleb. Kyler here, hashtag OG. I think he's our youngest OG of the show. I would love to find that out. But thank you, Kyler. You show up to every show. I really do appreciate that. Mr. James in here. I feel like I haven't seen yours in a minute. He said hashtag OG. Hey, when is too early to watch Draft Day? Hot take. Not a big Draft Day movie guy.
Never seen it.
There you go. Kevin Costner. Is that Kevin Costner? Yeah, right. Yeah. I feel like it's overdone on like how the things actually happen in draft. Maybe like, I don't know. I'm not in the war room, but I'm like, I think you're kind of overdrawn.
It's a good movie to throw on before the draft, though.
Oh, for sure.
You should do it.
And to answer your question, it's never too early to watch any football themed movie at all. Is that it, Jack? Perfect. Oh, look, I got to throw this one up here. Sorry. Baconator and fries. Maybe that'll be something if we get Becton and fries.
Yeah.
Oh, Pole's got to eat. So good stuff. Good stuff. Appreciate everyone. Yep. Oh, wait. The one thing here, too. One last thing. Definitely our youngest fan. So Kyler's 14. Appreciate it, Kyler. Look, you're coming
Kyler
in.
Gordon.
I wish I was 14. Well, no, when I was 14, the Bears were actually good. So you're about to have the same experience I did. Hopefully yours is longer. Like it's not a short stint, but great time to be a Bears fan.
Oh, I doubt it. But hopefully they prove us wrong. But yeah, absolutely. Sure. Guys, we'll be back next week. Like always, we're getting close to free agency. One of the best times of the year for this pod. There's a lot of new players coming in, acquisition, and just a lot of excitement. So we'll be back very, very soon. We appreciate the support. If you can, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and we'll talk to you next week. Bear down.
Peace.